it just happens when you least suspect it.
For that moment of time, it's almost like the world has stopped.
In that instant, your world is never going to be the same again.
The fact that I did it for a total stranger doesn't matter. I couldn't walk away from it.
I felt someone come like an angel that just appeared by my side.
There's so many reasons for me not to be there on that day, but I was there on that day.
It's probably the most difficult decision I've ever made in my life.
It was an impossible situation that we were in.
If we didn't do something, this guy was going to kill everybody, including us.
That was the moment when I knew that I was going to die.
That's a wonderful moment. Your faith in the human race is justified.
Christmas Eve, on a quiet road 3 miles from St Austell, 18-year-old care worker Danny Phillips has been in an accident.
When I woke up, I seen the steering wheel. That was the first thing. It was very quiet. I could see trees. I could see the moon. It was very cold. And it was very dark. I could touch the pedals, and that's when I realised that I was upside down because I was touching the roof. I just couldn't work it out in my head why the car was like it was. I couldn't really process it. And that's when I realised my arm was caught in my window, right up near my shoulder. That my arm was out of the window and it was stuck under the roof. I was trying to just figure out how to get my arm out. I couldn't move it. I tried my hardest, but there was nothing I can do. And that's when I could feel water just climbing up me, over my body. The water was rising quickly and I thought, I've got to get out of this. I kept trying and kept trying. I cannot sit up, I cannot put my legs up. It was so tight that my head was right down and I was just trying to keep it up. And at that point I thought, no, I haven't got a choice. I cannot get my arm out. I'm not afraid of water, but I was afraid then. And when they say your life flashes before you, it really does. I just remember looking up at the moon and just thinking, is this really my time? I thought, no one's gonna find me.
Two miles away from the scene of the crash, off-duty emergency care nurse Lizzie Wheatcroft is making plans for the evening.
We were planning on having this lovely Christmas Eve, all the children round, playing games, a few glasses of wine, and it was going to be wonderful. We were going to get pizzas delivered. We live in a very rural area, but luckily they deliver to us, which is fantastic and, you know, never a problem normally, other than on this occasion.
2 margaritas.
I have NHS discount with the pizza place. On this particular occasion, they refused to give the discount unless I went in with my NHS ID. So I wasn't happy at all. I'd actually got a glass of wine in my hand. Luckily, I hadn't had any yet.
Liz wasn't very happy that we had to go and collect the pizzas. She's quite a force to be reckoned with when she's not very happy. Every other time we'd phoned through, they'd accepted, but instead we had to drive through the pouring rain to fetch them.
It had been torrential rain throughout the day. The winter was particularly bad throughout the country because of flooding. Where we live, the main road from us into town was completely flooded, but we decided to give it a go, see how far we got. Normally it would be 15-20 minutes, but taking into account the weather, We were presuming it would be about 30 minutes, depending on what roads were open and what roads weren't.
It's the wettest Christmas on record in England. Hundreds of roads in Cornwall have been flooded.
The water was still rising, I was still stuck. So I tried to focus on just being calm. You know, I'm 18, I wanted to have a family, I wanted to get married one day. I thought that's all going to be taken away from me. And the more I thought about it, the more upset I got. And I felt bad on my family. I felt they were going to be upset that I'd gone. And I felt selfish, even though it wasn't my fault. I did. I felt awful. I was doing that. And that's when it started to go over my eyes. I thought, it's time. There's nothing I can do. So I just shut my eyes, and that is the last thing I remember.
"67-year-old writer Mike Tate is the first person to arrive at the scene of the accident.
As I approached the car, I have to say my fears were the worst. I really didn't know how anybody could have survived the impact that I'd seen. And I steeled myself, really, for the worst kind of picture when I got there. As I left the tarmac of the lane, my foot went down and I found myself shin deep in water. I suddenly realised that because we'd had so much rain, the whole of that area was waterlogged. There was an eeriness about it. I was terrified by what I was going to find. I didn't know how many people were in the car, and I didn't know who they were, and I didn't know what whether I would find anybody alive. I tried to peer in through the window, but couldn't see anything. It was just too dark. You're thinking, am I going to see blood? Am I going to see, what am I going to see? That was the remarkable thing about that night. We were looking forward to Christmas, and then suddenly we were involved in a tragedy.
The first thing we noticed was a car on the same side of the road as us, headlights facing us.
We thought they'd broken down, so we thought we'd better stop and just make sure they were all right, they didn't need any assistance, there wasn't anything to do. We could see that the road was flooded, but as I opened the driver's door to get out, I then saw headlights at the side. At that point, I could see a man, and he was pulling at the door.
It was around that point I realised there were two other people who joined me. The first thing we tried to do was to wrench the door open.
The door just wouldn't move at all. I went round the other side of the car, but it was actually wedged against a tree. There was no moving it.
Suddenly, between us, we managed to drag the door open.
There was an immediate feeling that the car was slowly sinking.
We can't see anything. We don't know who's in the car. Are the children strapped in the back? There could have been 4 people we can't see.
It couldn't have been worse, really.
This car, it's in water, it's upside down, it's sinking. There's smoke coming from the car. We need to get whoever's in there out.
"25 miles south of Bristol, Darius Khan and his family are travelling on the M5 motorway.
We were going for a small break for the weekend to North Devon, Woolacombe. We were driving down in the car and we were going to stay for a few days. Jasmine was about 6 months old. Jacob was 5 at the time.
It was probably the first holiday we'd taken with Jasmine and Jacob. So as you can imagine, we had the car absolutely rammed full of things. Pram, duvets, pillows, bottles. Short weekend, but yeah, a lot of stuff.
At about 6, 7 o'clock, we stopped at the services and had a meal.
Changed the 2 children, so they're both in their pyjamas. Jasmine was all snuggled up in her little baby grow. We then put them back in their car seats and we left the service station. We probably had about an hour and a half to go and we set off, just as you would. All excited, ready for the holiday.
Navy officer Martin Langland and his wife Claire are also travelling on the M5.
My wife and I had just been to Scotland, visited my parents, and we're just travelling back down to Weymouth.
I actually very much enjoy spending 7.5 hours in the car, eating bad food, singing along to 80s music badly and loudly.
Listening to music on the way down, normally singing away, to heart's content. No one else can hear us. We're both in a really good mood that day.
We were about an hour and a half away from getting home, and Martin had decided, rather than take his normal turning off the motorway, he would just continue on the motorway and take a different junction.
A slightly unusual way home, a slightly longer way home, but traffic was just far easier and it was just a nice straight road. It would just be a more relaxing drive.
Both the children were still awake. They were too excited to go to sleep. Jacob had asked to have a CD on. Jasmine was just sort of ready for sleep. She'd had her bedtime milk.
I tend to drive in the middle lane. I don't like the left lane, and my partner Rebecca, she doesn't like me driving in the fast lane, so we were sort of cruising along in the middle lane. But then we noticed a knocking noise starting. I didn't know what it was like a repetitive sort of banging noise. So I started to slow down. But before I knew it, big bang.
I pretty much knew instantly that the back tyre had blown.
It looked as if the car in front had lost control.
The car started fishtailing left and right. I started to put on the brakes. This seemed to actually make it worse.
All I could do was just scream.
Both kids were screaming.
I think the boot popped open, stuff got thrown out, and I slammed on the brakes and swerved all the debris.
It just felt completely out of control, like I could do nothing.
We could just see streams of headlights, and I just thought, that's it, we're going through that central reservation. We were going to hit oncoming traffic at 80 miles an hour.
I crashed head-on into the central reservation.
The car stopped.
But the rear half of the car was sticking into the fast lane.
There were still cars passing at 80 miles an hour to the side of us.
It was a black car, no lights. It was an unlit motorway. I had no doubt that we were going to get hit.
Darius and Rebecca's car has crashed at high speed into the central reservation of the M5.
It wasn't relief that we'd stopped, it was just the next stage of panic, really. What do I do next?
I was scared, but what happened next was even more scarier.
You see crashes on TV, the cars catch on fire and blow up, so you've got all those thoughts, what could happen?
My mind went crazy. What do I do next? I'm in a car, it's a metal shell. It is offering some protection, I guess. If I get Jacob out, we were right in the eye of danger. Stuck between a rock and a hard place, really. But I thought possibly could be safer in the car.
You haven't got any rational thought at that time. It's just, I need to get out of here. This is a deadly situation. I've got to escape and I've got to take my children with me.
Rebecca was screaming, we've got to get out, we've got to get out. And I was thinking, I'm not sure if that is the correct thing to do. And before I knew it, Rebecca had got out of the car.
I don't even remember, to be honest, getting out of the car. I think I was almost in a bubble. All I remember is blackness and the car. It was just me.
I'd heard brakes squealed, obviously someone had tried to avoid us. And I heard screaming as well. I knew our time was limited.
The next thing I remember, picking the car seat up, and just as I'd got the car seat in my hand,
a car smashed into us.
I just got hit and thrown across the floor. The next thing I remember was lying in the outside lane of a motorway. And then realising I'm lying on the floor, on the tarmac, it's all black around me. And then remembering I had Jasmine in my hands. Oh my God, where's Jasmine?
A car has overturned and is sinking in freezing water. Off-duty nurse Lizzie has just arrived at the scene. She has no idea who is inside or if they're alive.
I don't remember thinking anything other than get in there and get them out. I just got in the car. You couldn't work out where you were. Are we on the back seat? Are we on the front seat? What's this seat in front of me? You're feeling through this murky water. With the moonlight, you could see things floating slightly, but no faces, no bodies, nothing obvious. The next thing, my gaze came round. I could see this bright red hair floating. Bright red hair. And it just shone in the moonlight. I couldn't see her face. I couldn't see any body. She was deep. All I could think about was, I've got to get her out of the water. I'm feeling and getting hold of her and pulling her. But she's not moving at all. She was obviously trapped. So I just wrapped my hand round all this red hair until I got to her head, and then I just yanked it as hard as I could. And her head came out of the water. She'd got a face. She was a person. But she just was blue. There was nothing. I didn't think she was alive at all. She had, in all effect, drowned.
Navy officer Martin and his wife have just avoided a high-speed car crash on the M5.
First thing I did when I pulled over, put on my hazards. I remember looking at my wife and I shouted at her, phone an ambulance, phone a fire brigade, phone 999.
I spotted the car seat at that point, upside down in the outside lane of a busy motorway, and I couldn't see Jasmine in it. That was sheer panic then.
Motorway, when you get out of the car, is just so fast, it's unbelievable. If you stand still for a minute, have a look at how many cars pass you, it's very intimidating.
I just remember running, not even knowing if Jasmine was inside the car seat, if she'd come out, if she'd been hurt. That's too horrific a thought. Thankfully, she was still in the car seat, totally still, totally quiet. And at that point, I looked up. Still, people were driving past. Again, dread set in. What do I do next?
I remember looking across and I seen a woman holding her baby. I knew I needed to get across and help her. I could just see that she wasn't in a position where she could help herself.
Whilst on the phone to the emergency services, I'm going, well, there's debris and I'm not sure on how many people are involved and there's still cars coming down the motorway. That's the only description that I could give to them. You just don't have the ability to assess every single thing in such a short period of time.
There was just cars just piling through. At least 9 or 10 cars going past me before I could get across to her.
But you can definitely
You've got a car sticking out into the fast lane and other vehicles are trying to avoid it. All you could really hear was a lot of screeching.
Timing was everything. Looking and looking. And then I just remember going. I stopped in the middle lane when a car came behind me. They were braking, but they weren't stopping. It was just car after car after car. It's hard to tell how fast cars are going, especially when you stand and watch them come towards you. If I was a betting man, I would say that some may have been going over the speed limit.
Under no circumstances is this going to turn out to be a nice, easy, relaxed situation. The more traffic that flows, the more chaos is going to be created.
It's a scary sight. You've got these lumps of metal travelling at 70 miles plus. It was a matter of time before something serious was going to happen, if it wasn't already serious enough. It was going to be devastating.
Off-duty nurse Lizzie has managed to pull 18-year-old Danny out from under 2 feet of water inside her overturned car.
Brain damage starts to occur after 3 minutes. I had no idea how long she'd been there, but she did look dead. She was just looked like a dead person. I've got to do something quick. It was an impossible situation that we were in. The only thing that I could do was to give her breaths, which was less than ideal really, but that's all that I could do. There was all this stuff, twigs and trees and leaves and debris and all sorts everywhere. So, cleared her airway, hung onto her head. The next thing gave some breaths. There's always a chance of life. I've been proven wrong a lot in my career. Met somebody who I thought, oh dear, and they walk out 3 days later. I didn't know who she was. I don't know how she crashed the car. There were so many factors that I didn't know. It's not my decision to make. My role is to do the best I can for her in that situation, regardless of what the outcome was ever going to be. There was still an element of hope.
By that point, the car was surrounded by people. There was a lot of concerned chatter going on. Everybody was anxious to help. Everybody wanted to do something. It's a wonderful moment because you see how people come together. I mean, it's Christmas Eve. And everybody was stopped on the road and everybody wanted to do something to help. And I find that that's a wonderful moment. Your faith in the human race is justified, you know. We just all prayed that whoever it was in the car would come out okay.
I was in pain all down one side. I thought that was it for all of us. Just at that point, I felt someone come to my side, like an angel. He just appeared by my side.
I remember grabbing her, and I think I told her my name as well, and I said that she needs to come with me.
I said, my baby, and he just said, it's okay. Let's get across the motorway, let's get you to safety, and then we'll take a look at her. Made me feel like someone else would help me in this situation, and someone else was going to make this situation okay.
I needed to try and stay calm for her sake, and I was trying not to panic for my sake. And I remember, like, this needs to be quick, because someone's going to hit us. Traffic kept piling through. There was debris everywhere. Smoke from the engine and exhaust. Constant barrage of cars going past. I remember looking just for any opportunity, a chance where there was a gap big enough that I could run across 50 metres to safety. And you've got cars coming at 70, 80 miles per hour at you. It's a long distance to run. Come on. Just a little break. And looking and waiting. And then I said go, and I just pushed her and went.
He looked for the traffic, he crossed us over the motorway. I was in no fit state. Just had to get my baby to safety.
I know that when you put him in a situation that requires him to react, that he will react within a split second. There's no thought process with mine. He just knows what he needs to do and he gets it done. And he puts his own safety aside because somebody else needs help and he feels that he can help.
Put the car seat down on the floor and picked Jasmine out. For a split second, there was complete relief. My baby's fine. And then the next thought was, what about Daz and Jacob?
I wouldn't have stopped resuscitating her. Not until we were in a position to really know that there was no hope. My concern was, I can't do chest compressions. I'm holding her head out of the water. That's when my husband must have spoken to me and I realised he was behind me. I just said, bang on her chest. And he said, do what? He was shocked at what I'd asked him to do, thump her on her chest. Just do it, Lee. Bang her as hard as you can on the chest.
There was no room, so there was no way I could do proper CPR on her. It was sort of a desperate struggle to do something. We had this girl who was possibly dead, car still sinking, car still smoking. We had to do what we were doing fast.
It was just bang as hard as you can and I'll keep giving breaths.
It didn't feel very good doing it, but something needed to be done. Even though I know it wasn't, it did feel like hours.
I had no idea where we were time-wise. I didn't know whether help was coming. I didn't know how long I'd got to do this. I had no idea. seemed like a long time. The next thing, Lee just said, she's breathing. And she was. Very, very shallow breaths. Very surprised. I didn't expect that to happen.
She was alive. That was good. I think if we would have been 30 seconds, a minute longer, then it would have been a different story.
At that point, I heard somebody say, turn the car over.
We can hear these voices. They can't see what's in the car.
The situation was bad enough, but that was going to make it 10 times worse.
I was in shock from having my head bashed against the steering wheel. I was in some pain and my neck was hurting. I was still thinking about staying in the car or getting out of the car. I could hear brakes screeching, screaming, coming from somewhere. I knew there was chaos going on around me. The next thing, someone opens the door and says, I'm gonna get you out.
He does not know where he is at all. I was thinking, what the hell are you doing in the fast lane and motorway when you've got your boy in the back of the car? And at the same time, I was like, he doesn't quite know where he is. Right, take charge. Open the back door, and I got down to this little boy's height. I said, hi, my name is Martin, you're going to come with me. What's your name? I tried to pick him up, and I was like, I can't pick him up. And that panicked me.
He was in a very, very dangerous situation. It's like playing chicken with the cars on a motorway. The possibility of you dying or being hit is very high.
Your mind's in so much turmoil and shock. The rational thought goes out of your head completely.
I realised his seatbelt was still done up. The traffic was just getting heavier and heavier.
The three of us are stood there and we had to wait for a gap.
Not waiting any longer. And I just glanced at the traffic and just ran. Tried to push Darius and try to hold the boy. I think that was quite a quick run, that one. The sense of relief when I got to the other side, it felt pretty good. And then all I heard was the screech, then a massive smash.
Smashing and screeching.
The car that had hit our car literally bounced into his car.
I instantly panicked at that point. My wife was in my car.
I was conscious that the car may be still sinking. I think someone said, look, we need to make sure it doesn't sink any further. Let's try and move the car. I think the idea was to swivel it a bit because the driver's door was quite difficult to access because of the position it was with the tree.
Right, okay.
And an attempt was made.
1, 2, 3.
The car began moving.
I remember shouting as loud as I can, don't turn the car over.
Just hold it still. Within seconds, I mean, no, it's sinking, the car's sinking. So we stopped.
But probably the thing that saved her as well was the fact that had they not started to lift the car, we would have eventually been under the water. I can remember shouting, keep it where it is. So they all had to then keep the car upright as much as they'd got it before I'd told them to stop, because they'd lifted her out of the water more.
It wasn't until I got out of the car and realised that all of these people had come to help, which was amazing.
So I was on my own again with her. At this point, she started to do hypoxic breathing. Made me realise she was coming round. People who start to come round are very confused and they become combative, they fight. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen next? And just as I turned round, she just walloped me one. Her arm just came out of the water and just belted me. And then she started to fight. She then swore at me. Told me to get off her hair, which wasn't surprising. It must have been quite painful by then. A policeman had got in then. I was tired then. I was happy for somebody else to take over. So I just left him with her and got out of the car.
Screech, and then a car hit my car. I remember thinking, my wife. I remember sprinting down to the side of the car. She's not here. Then it dawned on me. She's back up where you just ran from. Completely forgot that she was stood about 4 foot away from me to my left.
I remember him saying to me, "Oh, I thought you were in the car."
It was horrible, actually. Horrible, the more I think about it. And I remember thinking, that's it. I think I'm done.
I don't think we got separated much after that.
I knew it was all over when I seen the police arrive. That was it. I'm done. Professionals are here now, so I can take a back seat.
Jacob gave me a big hug. Darius was in pain. Somebody took him aside and sat him down. He had pain in his neck. I just had my children. That was all that mattered to me. I wasn't bothered about the car, the debris. I had my children and they were with me.
When all the emergency services turned up and we found out that no one had been killed, and yeah, at that point, I felt a huge weight lifted off me.
Then the ambulance came along and took all 4 of us into the ambulance and took us away from the scene.
Everyone walked away. Everyone was fine. And it could have been so much worse.
I think there was about 8 to 9 cars written off in the final count, yeah. It was millions to one to walk out of that without, a fatality.
I just remember sitting there and thinking, ooh, wow, that was slightly more dramatic than I was expecting for our journey back home. You've never quite had happiness quite like that. It's almost like you've won the lottery because the person sat next to you is the one person that you absolutely love the most. Whatever's happened in the past doesn't matter because they're still there, and that's what counts.
I remember waking up, just didn't understand. I felt more confused then than how I felt when I was trying to get my arm out on my own. They put something under the car to raise the car up, and they said, "Can you get your arm out?" I said, "Please let me have a go."
I thought it was going to be a fatal. I thought that the impact of the collision and the fact that the vehicle had turned onto its roof, coupled with the fact that there's 2 foot of water, I was pretty certain that this was probably going to be a fatality. So for Danny to walk away from the incident with nothing more than cuts and bruises was miraculous.
All that was going through my head was, I cannot believe what's happening right now. But I didn't look back.
Oh, I was stunned, yeah. It was a miracle. Stunned. I mean, I cried.
And there was people looking at me and pointing, and they were probably thinking, oh my goodness, she's walking out of that.
Don't think we spoke to each other. I think it was just silence. I think we were just taking it in. Gosh, did that happen?
Absolutely unbelievable. It was very emotional. At that point, the policeman just said, "Can you move out of the way? Is that your car? Can you move it?" So we did. We just walked away, got in the car and drove off. Back home. No pizzas.
Without the actions of Lizzie and Lee, I don't think Danny would have been here today. Their behaviour is an example to others. Even in the face of adversity, even though you're scared, you can still make a real difference to somebody else's life.
I'll never forget that night. I drive by where it happened every day, and every time I drive by it, I'm reminded of what happened that night.
I don't feel I did that much. I don't feel that I did anything more than anybody else would have done. Danny must be such an absolutely incredibly strong woman to have survived, because she must have been under that water for a long time.
Of course, it turned out that Danny, bless her, had been on her way to an old people's home to help put people to bed on Christmas Eve, a young girl of 18. I was so impressed by that. There was this young girl on her way to help other people, and this happens to her. Thank God, though, she survived. And you know, there is a God somewhere.
I'm forever grateful for what everyone done for me. I suppose what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I had that tattoo on me already before my accident, and I thought it was, you know, it was meant to be, you know, I was meant to have that tattoo, I was meant to survive this accident, and I'm meant to go far with my life now.
It's not until chaos has completely stopped that you have a chance to sit back and realise it was an amazing thing for him to do. He stands out from the rest, as far as I'm concerned, and I couldn't be any prouder.
I wouldn't really class myself as a brave person, but I think what I done that day was brave-ish. Sometimes normal people can do extraordinary things, and I think I was there at the right place at the right time, and everything just went okay.
I know Martin definitely put his life at risk. While doing so, remained very cool and calm. It's hard to say how many people would do that, but I don't think many would.
I'm not a religious person in the slightest, but there was a guardian angel somewhere. We were very, very lucky that he was there that day. I'm really thankful. There are some good people still in the world, and he's one of them.
The whole situation just unravelled.
We've got to do something about this. No way this is going to end other than a complete bloodbath.
The most difficult decision I've ever made in my life.
Regardless of your age, it's up to you to do something.
I just started shaking all over.
2 guys were going to live or die based on what we did in the next 10 minutes.